Tanya Butler, technical difficulties. Technical difficulties, Tanya Butler.
Please feel free to raise your hand if this applies to you. How many of you have been at the airport and had your flight delayed due to bad weather or technical difficulties? Right, doesn't it drive you crazy? They never tell you what the technical difficulties are, which actually might be a good thing. And then they never even tell you that they're having technical difficulties until you're in your seat and it's too late for you to get off the plane. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Technical difficulties are a way of life. We all have them. We get used to it. But for people like me, technical difficulties are just a little bit over the top. For example, how many of you have been on a plane that had to turn around mid-flight and make an emergency landing? Oh, wow, I'm not alone. Terrific. I've been on a plane that had to turn around mid-flight and make an emergency landing. Not just once, not just twice, but on 3 separate occasions. I have been in more in-flight emergencies than most pilots in training. It all started with my trip to the Bahamas on vacation a few years ago. The weather was horrendous, the airport was packed, there were people all over the place, but I was optimistic. So I figured sooner or later I'm going to be able to get out of Miami and on my way to the Bahamas. Just then, a flight attendant from another airline comes over and says, I have a seat available on a Continental Cessna. Anyone want it? I said, me, I'll take it. Now, it would have been nice if I'd known what a Cessna was. Come to find out, Cessna's a little tiny plane. Had about 19 seats. 1 row of 8 or 9 on the left and 1 row of 9 on the right, and then 1 seat all the way in the back. I was seat number 18, all the way in the back, up against the engine. I didn't even have a window. And this flight was so low tech. There were no peanuts. There was no soda. There was no flight attendant, and there was only 1 pilot. Matter of fact, they didn't even have magazines. They had barf bags where the magazines used to be. But despite all of that, they cleared us for takeoff. Once we got to the air, I'm telling you, we were going up and down and up and down and up and down. And I just knew I was going to need one of those barf bags for sure. But before I could reach for it, I noticed something a little peculiar. Is that smoke? No, couldn't possibly be smoke. Smells like smoke, looks like smoke, but I'm optimistic, so it's probably just steam. Next thing you know, what's that? Something falls from the roof of the plane and hits me on top of the head. I turn around and it's a plastic cup on a string. Could this be my oxygen mask? I'm optimistic. No. Probably just a malfunction. Next thing you know, we take a dive so steep, we go vroom, so steep that my head hits the seat in front of me. Luckily, we start to level off, but then we just go down in a real hard, fast motion. Now I'm starting to get nervous, and my optimism is waning. Next thing you know, I hear a voice. Not the pilot's voice. One of the passengers says, hey, everybody, look! Everybody turns to look out their window, except for me, who doesn't have a window. And they say, look, it's Miami. Miami? Now, mind you, we left Miami about 15 minutes ago on our way to the Bahamas. Apparently, we have turned around and are now on our way back to Miami. And that's when the silence was broken. Ladies and gentlemen, due to technical difficulties, we will be making an emergency landing at Miami International Airport. Upon arrival, please immediately depart the plane. I repeat, immediately depart the plane. Well, next thing you know, we are on the ground and we hit hard. People are jumping in the aisles. They're jumping over the seats. They're going out the windows. Except for me, who doesn't have a window. So I'm left just standing there. And you know those emergency lights, the ones that are supposed to come on in case of emergency? They don't work. So I'm standing there alone in the back of the plane in the dark. And that's when I see it. There's a hand coming towards me in the darkness. I swear I thought it was God coming to get me. There's a hand coming towards me in the darkness. And they grab me by the wrist and they pull me from the back of the plane to the front of the plane, down the stairs, into the rain, across the tarmac to a place of safety. I didn't even know who it was. When I turn around, I look at the plane. The plane is covered in foam and smoke. There are fire trucks, fire engines, emergency vehicles. And I finally get myself together and I look at the person who pulled me off the plane, and it was the pilot. Apparently, we had an engine fire, plane caught fire, and the pilot was forced landing to get us on the ground. That pilot made sure that everybody was off the plane, including me. That pilot saved my life. So the next day, I actually got on another plane because I was going to the Bahamas. And that's when I learned my 2 lessons. Lesson number 1, never volunteer to take a flight on a Continental Cessna in the storm. That was lesson number 1. But lesson number 2, no matter how dark it gets, even if you're backed into a corner with seemingly nowhere to go, and there's no lights and no one around, if you just stay optimistic, sooner or later, there'll be a hand reaching towards you in the dark. Mr. Toastmaster.